I think the hustle culture is still glorified because everybody in their core feels like they're not good enough. I almost lost my marriage. You lose your family. I started in my basement with four teeny tiny customers, and I literally had no business background, no degree. I knew nothing about having employees or running a business or anything. The biggest myth is that it has to be hard to get there. So I had to go back to my teaching days and start to lead like I did as a teacher, and really through that playful leadership mindset so that people wanted to work for me. You're not alone, that you're going to build a team that's going to be as excited about your vision as you are, and you're going to do it together. So you don't have to carry this weight alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited for this one because we are sitting here with someone that knows childcare, knows businesses, talking about eight-figure businesses. The one and only Rachel Supalla is on the podcast today. How you doing, fam?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, listen, I'm really excited about having you on the show because a lot of our audience right now, they're already going through your profile. They're already going down to the show notes. They're trying to figure out exactly, okay, what is it that she does? What is it that she should do? How can I follow her? But your company, let's talk about it, went from an idea. Like, guys, your company literally went from an idea to the Inc. 5000 list. Like, what's one thing about like your journey that would just shock people if they truly knew like the behind the scenes truth?
I started in my basement with four teeny tiny customers. And then it just grew from there. And I literally had no business background, no degree. I knew nothing about having employees or running a business or anything.
Wow, that's crazy. Back in those basement days, you're really like, it kind of reminds me, I think Jeff Bezos also started in the basement too. When you think about like early childhood education, leadership often gets like overlooked. Let's just call it, right? When did you realize like the lessons you were learning, like running childcare centers, like could be applied to like any business, even at the 7 or 8 figure level?
I learned so I started with no team obviously, and then as I grew and started hiring team, it was more on necessity because, I had to be innovative. Necessity breeds innovation. And so I didn't know how to hire people or lead them. And I started trying to put everybody in a box, which is the opposite of why I started childcare in the first place. And so I had to go back to my teaching days and start to lead like I did as a teacher, and really through that playful leadership mindset so that people wanted to work for me. And then leaders wanted to be leaders in my company because they wanted to lead in that special way.
Yeah, 100%. I spent years managing a bunch of different companies, having a lot of different employees report to me, and we'll get to it because I think you got over like 200 employees. So that being that leader that other people want to follow is so critical. One thing I thought about that was very interesting is that you talk about burnout not being a badge of honor. Right. Yet most leaders secretly wear it. Like they wear it like it is one. They talk about how tired they are. Why do you think the hustle culture is still so glorified? And like, what's the real cost of it?
I think the hustle culture is still glorified because people feel everybody in their core feels like they're not good enough. So they feel like if they're hustling or showing that they're hustling and they're doing so much that they can earn it. They earn that level of success. And the cost of that is that you burn out, you lose I almost lost my marriage, you lose your family, you don't know, you have no clarity, you don't know where you're going next, and you get to this point that you just wanna crawl up in a little ball and hide in a corner from everybody because everybody's asking you questions, and you can't function.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you can't function, you're pretty much useless, right? You're no good. One of the things I think you're known for really is your framework, right? Your framework is called magic. Like, what is the biggest myth that you feel like people have about creating magic in leadership? And like, what's the reality?
The biggest myth is that it has to be hard to get there. It doesn't have to be hard to get there. I do think at the very early stages, of course, you're going to have that hustle and that grind, but you have to have a plan to get out of that hustle and grind, even at the very beginning, which I didn't. So that's something that I want to help people with my magic framework is to have a guide to help them have a plan for the hustle and the grind, but then what's next? How am I going to get out of this hustle and grind? What level do I need to get to bring on more team members? And what does that look like? Just have a plan along the way, because if you don't have a plan, that's really where burnout sets in, is because you just feel like you're drowning and you cannot see above the clouds.
Facts, that speaks volumes to my ears because if you don't have a plan, like you have no purpose, you have nothing that you're truly aiming for, right? So you want to make sure you protect that mind state. And so when I think about this, right, by having that plan, having something like your magic framework, you're going to grow as a leader and you're going to start to employ more people. One of the things that I think that is very key here is that you employ over 200 people. Like, what's the hardest like leadership lesson that you've learned that like no MBA program or textbook would ever teach you?
That as you grow, as your company scales, your leadership also has to scale. So I love my team. I love leading people. I love having my leadership team. But as we grew, I had to put in layers of leadership. And so that the layers under me could love their leaders as much as I love them. And that was a hard lesson for me because it meant that I had to step back um, as we grew and, love on the different layers, still love everybody on my team, but not in the same way. And again, having a plan in mind, now I know as we keep scaling that that's just how it works and it works well. So yeah, that's a big lesson for me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like having those layers, also too, like empowering those layers too, right? One of the things I found very interesting when I was a brand manager of Target is that I had, supervisors that reported to me, but those supervisors had their own team. And I had to make sure, and I'm pretty sure you definitely would agree with this. I had to make sure that I always not only uplifted them, but also gave off just a persona that, hey, go to your supervisor first, and if you don't get the answer that you're supposed to think you're gonna have, let's talk about it. Let's work about it together and come up with like a new solution for that, right? One of the things that I think about is as we're talking about scaling, let's talk about it, right? Discovery KidZone, scale to 8 figures. But scaling, like this isn't like in childcare, it isn't like a tech startup, right? What did you do differently to grow in such a people intensive regulated industry? What did you do differently?
It's very relational and it's all about the connections. So, a lot of the acquisitions that we have, actually, all of the acquisitions that we have acquired have been through relationships. I've built relationships with our community and then, helped people. And along the way, they've come to me and been like, hey, I want to sell my business. Do you want to buy my business? So, relationship or connections, that's really important. And it's like you said, it's very people heavy in our industry. Like we have ratios to maintain, and it's also a high turnover industry because of the amount of stress, and a lot of times it's a stepping stone for people to go into different careers. So we have to navigate differently, much differently than like a tech startup, like you're saying, because that's hardly any employees and they're making millions and billions of dollars. So yeah, the people piece of it is very different and very important.
People piece is key. I know right now you just unlocked something for someone listening right now who has just been struggling with finding out like how do we get more people enrolled? How do we get the right partners? How do we create experiences? As a dad, and watching my wife and work in childcare, I know just how important those small things are because that might be the only opportunity that child has to grow. And you're a
Mhm.
key element into that. You're also hosting a webinar, right? The 5 unfair advantages high achieving women use. Without giving them all away, what's one unfair advantage that listeners might already have but don't recognize?
I would say the biggest one for me is saying yes to everyone and everything, which means saying no to yourself and ultimately saying no to your company. And this is something as we're growing, as we're scaling, we think we have to do, especially in a people heavy business, which all service industries, not just childcare, by the way, are people heavy. So
Facts.
in a people heavy business, a service industry, we feel like we have to, yes, 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 I'll get that for you. Cause we don't want them to quit, or we want to, them. We answer all the customers' questions instead of delegating to other people. And at the end of the day, we can't make a decision. We lose money. We have leaks in our business. We have people leaks. We have power leaks. And it's just because we can't learn to say no.
The power of saying no, right? Write that down. I think that's good. So if someone like listening right now wanted to grow their business without grind culture, let's talk about it. What's one small shift that they can make this week that would like have the biggest impact?
The biggest would be to reclaim your calendar. So look at your calendar and see, is it just full of busy stuff? What can you delegate, automate, or eliminate off of your calendar today? For next week, look at your calendar and see those three things that you can get off of your calendar to make more white space, because the more white space you have, the more you can be creative and innovative and help your company grow.
Facts. So you gotta have that space to create and stop running, right? You gotta have that. Let's flip it a little bit because you've been on all sides. And what's the leadership strategy that you used in childcare that like just surprised you when you used it, but it also worked in like the boardroom and with executives?
Yeah, and I said, the playful leadership strategy. And that doesn't mean like coming in dressed like Miss Rachel. Actually, I am going to dress like Miss Rachel today for my schools, but that
That's so
doesn't
cool.
mean doing that. But it means having a playful mindset. So what are the things that help your brain relax? Laughter, connection, all of those things. So making that on the forefront of what you do in leadership, instead of walking in, coming in like a wrecking ball, like, here's the things on your scorecard that you need to fix. Here's the things that I noticed in your location that need to be better. No, you come in and you tell a joke. You ask how their weekend is. You ask what they're doing right now, new or different. What's a win? What's something they're grateful for? That's the playful leadership mindset. And that works in any industry in America.
Yeah, I love this because playful leadership, right? If I were to summarize what you just set up, playful leadership is literally humanizing whatever you're saying. And I think that that's so key. And I can imagine you've given a lot of advice, and some advice people have been like, "Ah, I don't know if I want to do it. They've been resistant. And that advice actually helped them. So I got to ask you, like, what's like the most counterintuitive, like leadership advice you've ever given? That's something that people resisted at first, but later on they thanked you for.
I mean, I would say the playful leadership mindset. A lot of times people say that's not going to work for example, not to be like sexist or anything, but when I'm working with male clients versus female clients, I'll get a lot of pushback from the male clients. They'll say, I can't act like that with my team. Why can't you? Well, because it might come off as flirting or as, anything like that. No, it's not. It's connection. You can connect with any sex, any gender, it doesn't matter. So I would say that playful leadership style makes people feel weak as a leader, and it makes them come across as giving up their power. But it's different. You have to flip it to, I'm not giving up my power, I'm not weak, I'm not being flirty, any of those things. I'm influencing this person to catch on to my vision so that we can go attack the vision together to make a bigger impact.
Oh, I like that, and as you've helped so many people with their vision, guys, we're talking like six, seven, eight-figure entrepreneurs. Like, what separates? I'm curious for you. Like, what separates the ones who break into like eight figures versus like the ones who are just like stuck at six? Is it like mindset? Is it strategy? Or is it something like no one else is talking about?
It's absolutely mindset, and that's why that's the first step of my framework, because the way that my framework works, we start with mindset. We've mastered that. Then we go on to assessing the pain points. We pull back the curtains. A lot of times that's where they get stuck and they're like, oh, this is happening. These people, retention, whatever. So then they get stuck in this, like, I'm never going to get out of this hamster wheel. Woe is money, whatever, and then they get back to the mindset level. So the ones that can master their mindset, truly master their mindset, which is your calendar, your time, your energy, all of those things are the ones that are going to be able to scale to the 8 figures and beyond. But if you cannot master your mindset and you always have a negative outlook and you're always looking for the worst things that can happen, you're not going to be able to scale. You keep going back, and I've seen it over and over and over again.
Oh, that mindset is so key. I'm glad you touch on that in your framework, because once you overcome that, you really unlock the new belief, right? And I'm curious, when you look back on Rachel 20 years from now, like, I'm curious, what do you want to be remembered for? Do you want to be remembered more for the businesses you built or the leaders that you've raised?
I want to be known for the legacy that I leave. I want to be known for the impact that was on the community, that was on the leaders, that they were able to impact their families and their communities. And because of just that positive, playful mindset, it happens in your home, it happens in the boardroom, it happens everywhere that you're at. And that's what I want to be known for, is that people, anytime they got stuck or felt like they couldn't go on, they learned how to flip their mindset and be a playful leader in whatever facet of life so that they could make an impact.
Oh man, I like this. Impact is so key. I'm curious if you could go back, right, to the early Rachel, like the teacher, the wife, the woman just starting Discovery KidZone. What would you whisper in her ear that could have saved her from a decade of mistakes?
You're gonna make me cry. I would say it's not it's you're not alone. That you're gonna build a team that's going to be as excited about your vision as you are, and you're going to do it together. So you don't have to carry this weight alone.
Oh man, that's powerful. I think that's why it's so important that you get into a community, you find your people, you find the Rachels of the world, you find out what they have, what they're offering, because you don't want to do this alone, right? You can literally skip a lot of steps by being a part of something. And you've got this webinar coming up. If you're listening to this, hopefully you're listening to this right in time to go ahead and sign up for this webinar September 3rd, teaching women to unlock like the leadership magic. Why is the perfect moment for someone listening? Like, why is this the perfect moment for someone listening to say, you know what? I'm ready to jump in.
Because like I just said, you don't have to do this alone. Not only have I laid out the framework for you because based on all the mistakes that I've made before you, and I don't want you to have to do it again. I've cut the roadmap in half for you, but also it's a community. The people that are going to be part of this magic community are going to be there for each other. We're going to be able to answer each other's questions, a shoulder to cry on when we feel like it's too much, different tips and tricks that we never thought of. And that's the big part, is you don't have to do it alone. We're all in this together, and we need mentors. We need people that have walked the road before us. We need people that are there with us, and we need people that just get it.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. Listen, I gotta ask you the question we ask every single person that's ever been on this platform, ever been on this podcast. If you were asking yourself the question of the show, school's over, now what? What advice would Rachel give?
Think about your world 5 years from now. And what do you want your world to look like? Really visualize it. Where do you want to be? What do you want your family to look like? Yourself, everything, your bank account, everything. What do you want that to look like in 5 years? Now work backwards from there and just pick one thing that's going to move the needle forward today.
Mm, I like this conversation. Listen, Rachel, right now people want to follow you. They want to know more about what you got going on. Just give us all your social media info and where we can find you.
You can find me on Rachel Supalla on Instagram, Rachel Supalla ECE on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Rachel Supalla. And we have, like you said, a webinar that's coming out today. And that's all on my socials as well. And my website is visiontreeleadership.com.
That's fire. Phenomenal guest. Guys, make sure you go ahead and sign up. Make sure you go out and follow Rachel. And for those of you that have been listening, I want you to always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. We'll see you next week.
Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at SeanRAnthony_, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.